We good?
I get it from my shoulder, and my shoulder is...
Good afternoon. The City of Southport Board of Aldermen Budget Workshop, May 10th, 2023, is now called to order. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for being here in person. Thank you, Board. Thank you, City staff. And welcome to those watching virtually. Our invocation will be by Reverend Alderman Lowe Davis and will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
This is a prayer given to me by Stuart Milton, the minister at Trinity Methodist Church, who will be moving over to Carolina Beach. A new minister is coming from Beaufort, and in honor of the many things that Stuart has done for Southport, his spiritual gifts, his kindness, his compassion, his pastoral skills, we're really going to miss him. And so I'd like to say this prayer in honor of Stuart. Gracious and Holy Father, give us the wisdom to discover you, the intelligence to understand you, the diligence to seek after you, the patience to wait for you, eyes to behold you, a heart to meditate upon you, and a life to proclaim you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Davis, and make sure Pastor Milton has the ferry schedule so he can come back over and visit with us. And we'll still have him on our invocation rotation, absolutely. So thank you for that. Item D, approval of our agenda. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Allen, second by Mr. Lombardi. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. Agenda item E1, review of new positions and taxation. And I'll call on City Manager Bonnie Thayer.
Yes, I'm going to have Brandon go through it. In the packets that you have in front of you, you should see the itemized list. And I've asked him to do taxation for dummies because it's awful hard to understand a lot of this. So he's going to go through each position, how he came to the tax rate, depending on what you do. Nothing. It's a very complicated topic.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Board. Thank you for coming on this pretty day outside. So if you would look at there should be a few pages in front of you. The first page has all of them listed, and then the next two pages is a breakdown for each position. If you're missing one, please let me know. So
The first page.
Yes, so it's the first page will have the total tax rate at 3.3608. It just has everything listed.
Okay. I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So how I got to these numbers is based on City Manager Bonnie's message for the budget. For every $142,444 increase or decrease, that is what's going to affect every cent per $100 on the rate. So I took each individual position and divided it by that amount, and that gave me the percentage of what it was to be that whole cent. And then I just multiply that by the 1 cent so it can give the decimal amount. And anything on the right-hand side where it says revenue neutral with added cost, that is each individual one added it to the neutral rate, which is the 2847. So it's just adding that, for instance, the first line has .0047. It's just adding that to what the neutral rate would be to show you what the increase would be in whole. So if you switch to the itemized version, it'll start off with admin and the IT position. That one with a total, so the salary is estimated to be 80,000, and then the benefits are 33,850 roughly. So that total cost at 113,848, based on the 142,445. That would have the rate increase to .2927, and each of these underneath has the breakdown on the neutral versus the new rate for each position, and then it has the difference on what the dollar amount would be for average. So with this change, it would be $28.80 for a new assessed value of a $360,000 home, $51.84 for a $648,000 home, and then an $86.40 increase for a $1,080,000 home. So it was brought to have 2 pavers, same rate, the $61,000 roughly, and it would raise that rate slightly to, it's a .00428 increase, so that's the .289, and that's for each of those positions. So if you just get one paver, it'll just be the .289 if you chose just to get one paver, and that's the only position you want filled. And it was mentioned about promotion to a lead man. That was $6,366, so that would be the one that's least impacted for the tax rate, because it would go up .2851, so it would just be like 0.3 cents. For the community building to transfer from part-time to full-time, that would be $50,000 roughly, $5,500. And then that impact would be, the neutral rate would go up to .2882 instead of the 2847. For fire inspector, ISO officer, that's expected to come out from revenues, but the impact would go from $66,000 roughly, and the .2893 new tax rate. Rescue has 2 paramedics, same as the pavers. It'll be the same increase if you get for each one. So it's roughly $80,900. And then the tax rate would be .2904 after one of those are added. And then for development services, the building inspector will be $111,500 roughly. The tax rate would increase to .2925. And then the permanent technician would be roughly $74,200, and the rate would go to .2899. Again, same as the fire position. These are expected to come out of revenues, but it just show you the effect on how it would be on the rate outside of it. For code enforcement officer 2, it would be $91,000 roughly, and then the new rate would be .2911. Historic downtown planner, the total cost for that position would be $99,800 roughly, with the tax rate going to .2917. And then building grounds, I know we've talked briefly about this, but for someone to water the plants, for the plant boxes that have been donated, that with the vehicle, so they would have to have a vehicle and a water tank. That's what the $37,199 is in the middle between the $15,000. That's the whole cost of the vehicle, not by a yearly lease. But the total cost for that would be $52,200 roughly, and would be .2884 for the tax increase. And then we did get 2 bids for the cemetery if we wanted that to be contract and not done in-house. The highest bid was $126,000, and that would increase the tax rate up to .2935. whereas the low bid was 70,700 roughly, which would be 0.2897 for the tax rate. And the last thing is the 50% for dependent coverage. This is 50% on family, spousal, and children. So if we were to do it based on the amount that showed interest in it, which is about 23 people, then if the city was to pay half of that, it would be $110,603. But that is with a 10% contingency in case there's new hires or transitions. So that would make the rate 0.2925 after adding that. And then that overview sheet that I spoke of before, you'll see it shows the total cost and then the total effect if you adopted all of these things would be 0.3608. Oh, sorry, it is the first one that has every department listed.
It's like a summary.
Yeah, it's the summary page.
That's it.
So for that total amount, I only took the lowest bid for the cemetery. So that way it wouldn't inflate that too high. So just think of that if you're thinking about the overall cost of all of these added, it will be only using the one bid for $70,700 roughly in that full calculation. And if you have any questions, please ask me. Yes, sir.
So when you were doing these, were you including the benefits?
Yes, sir. Benefits are all included with these positions.
Okay, and I'm not a math whiz, so
Oh,
I'm just going to have to ask you a question here.
Yes, sir.
I know what the benefits are. So on the IT position, the total package is $113,000. And the number that's listed to the far right is 0.2927. And then the street paver is $60,000, and the number is 2890. There's virtually nothing, the numbers, that change in the value, one's twice as much as the other, yet there's not much difference in that number. Is that, I just want to make sure it's correct.
Right. So
If you tell me it's correct, it's correct.
yes, sir. So basically what it does is each 1 cent is based on $142,445.
Right.
So this $113,000 is not even a whole cent increase.
But it's more than a third of it, penny increase. It's 80% of 142.
Yes, for IT?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, so you subtracted that from that.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's not, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, sorry about that. But that was, it might be on the,
The others, it was.
it was on the overview page, I believe. It just didn't translate to the breakdown, so I apologize about that. But the total cost would be $66,973.
And I understand this, I'm just speaking to the ceiling right now, not
Yes.
you, because this question is not yours to answer. So for 2 years now, we've gone out for bid for cemetery work. Cemetery work is difficult because of the stones. It's time-consuming, and they have to be real careful of the stones. Last year, we got no bids. This year, we have 2 bids. They're kind of far apart. Has any consideration been given to the parks that are linear? Taylor Field. The people that do my development could do Taylor Field in less than 2 hours. Poof, knock it out. Just because the machines go at, I clocked them the other day, 12 miles an hour, and they're not at full throttle, and they're still doing 12 miles an hour. So they can knock out those linear parks really quickly. If we were to contract in the future, thinking about contracting all the the parks that don't have tombstones in it, I think we'd have a lot more time that we wouldn't have to pay such a large dollar amount for cemetery work. Because no one wants to bid on, because I've asked people, they don't want to bid on the cemetery because time is money to them. And you got to go around everything, and if your weed whacker hits the stone too many times, it's going to leave a mark. So I'm not sure that we're looking at all the options here. But once again, that's not, I'm just talking to the wind here. I'm not asking you to answer that question.
I mean, we can certainly look at adding things, but I mean, I've done this both ways, where the staff does it, or we have an outside contractor, I would want to make sure that outside contractor is doing its job. Because I've had it where we supervise them, and it ends up, you're spending more time supervising them, and we got rid of them. Because that's how much of a pain that they just weren't doing it to the quality, I guess is what I want to say, of what we want.
You're not talking about cemetery work, you're talking about just lawn work in general.
In general, right. And let me tell you, if we do decide to go the outside route, I'm going to sit down whoever that contractor is and have a long talk, because we're going to expect, especially with cemeteries, a certain quality, and they can't just be going in there very quickly and, you know, there's going to be a quality that is going to have to be stated to them, that they're going to have to uphold.
No, I'm not coming down the side one way or the other about either cemeteries along, well, the regular parks. I'm just thinking that we could get more bang for the buck. If we, for the 70,000, they would do more of the parks than the square footage of the cemetery, because it's going to take them 3 times as long to do the cemetery. And I throw that out just as a guesstimate.
I have a comment. Why was that revenue neutral number published? Because everybody is calling me, thanking me, and saying it's wonderful now. Here we're going to jump back up.
Do you know by state law you have to? You have to publish it.
Where I know that all this is necessary to go back up, way up to where, I don't know if people are going to accept that. And I don't think it's right.
Yeah, no, actually, I wasn't, first of all, I never heard of revenue neutral, and that's another story. But I did not know that about it had to be printed until I saw something from the county, and by state law, you must publish what that revenue neutral is before you start deliberation, so they understand that.
I didn't know that. But anyway, people have been elated that it has stayed revenue neutral.
Yeah. So the total tax increase is 3.608 cents, is what's projected if we did all this?
Yes, sir. So if it was adopted, all of these items, then the total tax rate would be the 0.3608.
Okay. And give me the revenue neutral rate again, 22,847.
Yeah, actually, it's down, I'm sorry, it's down here at the bottom. If you look at the house values,
Yeah, okay.
that's the easiest place to find it.
So that's almost, 8 cents difference? Is that correct?
We raised it last time.
I've got a question. When I look at, I'm on the main budget sheet where it says revenue. It says 2023, page two, where it says 2023 estimated actuals. So what I think that means is what we're actually collecting for the tax year 22-23. Would that be
No,
accurate?
the estimated actuals is what we think we will end this fiscal year with.
Right. And so I guess my question is, and I don't fully, is why are we then proposing $195,000 less than what we think our actual is going to be for the previous year? If you look where it says proposed $4,055,000, that's 195,000. No, not 195 actuals. It's 100. It's less. And was it 195? I thought I calculated it. Anyway, I'm starting to look at the numbers and go crazy. But anyway, my question is, why would we be less than when we're expanding? It doesn't make sense to me if we have new construction and our tax base is expanding, why that's 195 less.
All the estimates came in from the department heads. We went through them with them of what they estimated they'd be able to do, and that's the number that we came up with. Oh, I see
what
what you're
Karen's
saying,
saying
yeah.
is just ad valorem taxes is $195,000 less than, you know,
I don't know how that
requesting, I
got
guess. It's not actually less than the estimate actuals, it's less than requested.
So that was reduced because it was kept in mind that if we were going to go forward with a neutral tax rate, it would be a decrease in what was received in income. Excuse me?
That's less than.
That's less than neutral.
Well, this estimating actuals is based on, we had the .3946, I believe. So if we go down, then we're going to expect less revenues from that.
Value went up. So the whole point of neutral is it's neutral, it stays the same.
Assessed values went way up. We gotta take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it. I'm not sure.
Am I correct that we think 3 of these positions should be revenue neutral by the end of the year? I was led to believe that the fire chief gave us the impression that he would be able to
Yes,
get more money
yes.
and that would offset most, if not all, of the 2 paramedics positions.
Yes, actually, he gave me an update today, and they went through all the numbers.
So theoretically, if we hired 2 extra paramedics, we might have to front it on this piece of paper, but at the end of the year, we
There
should
should be more
have
revenue.
close to their salaries in surplus, as long as we transfer it back. In other words, if the fire department spends it on
It will
something
go
else,
into the fund balance, right.
it would do that. And am I correct that there's one position in the planning office that would be revenue neutral because it would be paid for by the fees of the planning board stuff?
I think three of them would be, right? There's
Two,
the,
Two.
there's the planning technician
Only
Right.
the technician
and
and
the
the
building
building inspector.
inspector.
2 of
Those
them.
2 would be.
Yeah.
So
Right.
those should be, we think,
Well, by state law, you must use any revenues from building inspections to that
but
department.
can we guesstimate how much that would be in next year?
Well, I think we already have.
Yeah, you do.
We've increased the revenues for that department as well as for rescue based on those
Not-
assumptions, right?
Not rescue as much as the building.
Yeah, in your packet for the board meeting is new personnel request and priority order, and they have asterisks by the 1 additional building inspector, 1 additional permit technician, and the fire inspector ISO officer that to be paid for by revenues in building and fire. And then according to the email today, the 2 paramedic positions with fees for transports and that type thing, that should be paid for also by the end of the year.
I'm sorry, so you said 3 in planning and 2 in paramedic?
Two in planning and.
2 in planning?
Yeah, 2 in planning.
Okay.
The building inspector, permit technician, and where I got 3 was also fire inspector, they're all together. But that would come through fire inspections, and then the others would come from revenues and building, and then the paramedics from transports. So that's, would help in terms of, but I think you're right, there would have to be some upfront money initially.
We'd have to
Yeah.
budget it because
Yeah.
we don't have the money in
Right.
hand. But in theory, we would be able to tell the citizens that we're not necessarily, the problem we have is when we budget it, we have to raise taxes to get there.
Or use fund balance.
Or you're correct, or use fund balance. And I
I
hadn't thought of
wouldn't
that, thank you.
recommend that.
So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can get some more employees without having to raise taxes, because it's rare that we'll go back the next year and lower the taxes.
Yes,
So,
very rare.
Okay, so if we can get through the first year and prove that this is revenue neutral or close to it, I think that would go over better with the citizens than it would be to say, we're hiring 5, 6, 4, I think there's like 17 positions here, some number like that, on top of all the people that we hired last year. So I'm just trying to find a happy ground.
And we need to get every dime we can with the ad valorem, but it shouldn't be less.
That's why I
than
said to them, go in the
year
kitchen and
before.
figure it out now.
Yeah, because and I don't think the citizens would, if you knew that money was going for, let's say, 2 paramedics, I don't think, if they knew where the money was going for at such a, or the historic preservation planner or whatever, we knew that, if it was a little bit over than what we received the year before, I don't think our citizens would be disappointed because the service that they're gaining would be so beneficial.
I got a question. Why, when the different people submit their budget, don't they include the people that they wanted in there anyway, and they knew at the time? Why don't they do it at the same time?
It's me, it's not them.
Oh.
That's the way I've always done my budgets. New positions are very controversial, and I have always preferred that I'll tell you my rank order and what you think, but the elected officials should make the final decision as to what they feel is needed for the city. So that's nothing to do with them, that's me.
But shouldn't that be done like first so that we know?
That's just the way I've always done it. And if I can just comment back to Alderman Alt's comment, here's a perfect example. If you look at the board budget under contingency, there is 1.2 million something, I can't remember the exact, 1,290,043 sitting in contingency. There is no way in heck that's going to sit there. It should not. That is way too much money that we could be earning interest on. But but the reason for that is, and we gave this to you in your packet, is all you have to do is look at the increase revenue amounts that we did not project correctly for whatever reason. I mean, people started drinking more, you know. But you look at that plus, for example, the department heads did an awesome job with their budget, keeping their budgets under control. You guys gave a lot of new positions last year, but they never hired them for July 1st, even though they were budgeted for July 1st. They never got hired till the fall. It's also...
Money, that was a question I've always had. We call it credit for turnover. Sometimes in some jurisdictions, the department gets to keep that money.
No.
And others, we are turning it back into the general fund. Okay.
90% of it always goes to the general fund except for the electric and water. It all goes, has to. So, I mean, there's reasons for that, and that usually happens every year. That's a lot, though. That is a lot of money. But I said to Brandon, there is no way I'm going to let that sit there when we could be getting 5% interest on that money for contingency. But if you're going to utilize it, it can only be, I would only recommend you do it for one-time expenses. You don't want to keep doing recurring.
No, I'm only talking about for this first year.
No, I know.
To prove to ourselves and to the world that our estimate that 4 of these positions are self-paying. We'd use it to front those positions if we so desired to have them increased. And that only for those 4. And then next year, we would have the money because the departments never spent it. And that would go back into the budget and we'd fund them for the next year.
Our fund balance right now, 11 million, does that sound, no.
Sorry. The general fund total is the total budget, then there's $1.2 million for contingency surplus, and so the general fund is the 11, but that's way too much money for the general fund, for fund balance. It can't be right. No, I wish we did.
Well, because we said we had a 60%, so
Yeah.
that can't be those figures are somewhere else.
I got to go through my other file. No, those are general fund amounts. Those are not the fund balances. So that's what I got to find for you is the fund balances.
Yeah, because that's the addition of general government, public safety,
Yes.
transportation, environmental, parks and rec, water and sewer, electric, and so all that added together. Yeah, those are all those added together. Then, of course, the other funds are separate, water and sewer and electric. Water and sewer, 8 million, electric, 11 million. And then capital projects is separated out at 7 million. That would leave the general, total general fund.
I guess the reason why I asked that question, Bonnie, is because it looks like we need about $1 million to do all of these things, a little over 1.1, somewhere in there. So we could take that from the general fund balance.
I would recommend capital items, but not recurring expenses. Because if your fund balance ever starts, supposing you get a hurricane and that fund balance is wiped out, now what are you going to do? You're either going to be laying people off, or you're going to raise that tax rate to make up the difference. So that's why I always say use it for one-time expenses. So that's why capital, I took a bunch out of the fund balance to pay for capital, because that's.
I assume we're holding questions until we get an answer on the fund balance, is that correct?
Well, I think the fund balance, but we also need
The ad valorem
the
is
ad
what they're
valorem
looking
tax.
at.
Yeah.
They're working on that right now. We can continue to discuss.
Yeah, I don't know, what's the 1.2 million for contingency in the board budget?
That, it's under board. I'll show it to you, John. Yep. Yeah, right there.
It's on page 6.
So what is that?
That's what I was just saying. That's excess revenues. It's in your handouts today. These are all the excess revenues that came in above and beyond what was proposed, or I should say adopted last year by all of you, as well as department heads kept their budgets under control. We had a number of those new positions that were approved, but they were salaried for July 1st. They weren't hired until October or November. The merits were budgeted for the entire year when they really weren't supposed to go into effect until this month. So that's creating a part of the whole excess money. So between everything, it's a 1.2855, yeah.
We over budget? We over budgeted?
Yeah.
Well, so we can apply that 1.2 towards the new positions?
I would not recommend it because, again, it's one-time position, I would only recommend fund balance and items being put towards, I mean, you could,
I don't,
but if you don't have that kind of surplus next year, how are you gonna pay for it all?
not all of them.
No.
And we're gonna have profit on.
If you look at these two forms here, okay, and you look at the amount of revenues that were increased over what you adopted, if you don't get those same revenues next year, then how are you gonna pay for those people? And if you don't have all the savings that you do this year, then how do you, how do you keep funding them? I mean,
So 1.8
that's the
in
problem.
1.8 in additional revenue that we weren't expecting, plus 1.2 that we didn't spend. Is that right? That's
No, it's combined. You gotta look at the whole list.
okay.
Yeah, it's combined. I mean, that's just the way I've, that I've always recommended, I'm always afraid that if you use excess monies that were not budgeted and then use it for recurring expense and you don't keep having that amount of money, then
Okay.
what if the revenues all start going down?
What? Was the 1.2 million put in the board contingency just as some kind of placeholder? Where, I don't understand that. I
I've
mean, that
never
money's not budget, what?
I've never
Where'd
seen-
that come from? I don't
I've
understand.
never seen it done this way. Never. 30
I
years.
I will say, in the past with the budget, there has been money in this contingency, and it's only been like 70,000, things like that, if through the year, the board could fund things out of that contingency. That's how I've seen it used before.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking with Paul and Brandon today, they both said the same thing. They've never seen a budget where, Melanie had put this money in the contingencies, and I don't know why, and I mean, I understand where it came from, but it should not just be sitting in a contingency account.
No, it shouldn't. But I don't understand, you referenced earlier that we shouldn't use it. I mean, it's not, we shouldn't be using one-time funds for operating budget, but, I mean, it's not one-time funds. The money's coming in from, most of it's coming in from ongoing revenues that we get every year, like motor vehicles, tax collection, sales tax, ABC distribution, fire department, whatever. So, I mean, I'm not sure I follow how a reoccurring revenue is one time.
No, that's, like I said, I mean, if those revenues go down and all of a sudden you don't have any of that coming in, and you used it,
I mean, regardless.
then you're gonna have to lay people off, that's all.
Well, so,
Well, part of the, John, just as an example, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there's a huge contingent of people who believe that the banking issue is not resolved yet. It may be resolved in the last 2 days. The banking issue. So if the banking issue falls apart, our economy's going to fall apart. And so we can talk about hypotheticals that can make anything go bad, and you can't avoid all risk. But this is a risk right now that we really don't know. So I'd be more inclined not to use it for a recurring thing, and hoping that we're going to get another 1.2 million. Because at the 1.8 million, this thing's in here, I'm not even sure, like the FEMA money, that's never coming back unless we get another project, right? And can you use fire fees for anything except fire things?
Say fire fees, I'm sorry?
Can you use fire fees for anything you want to, or can you?
No, only fire.
Only for fire, okay. So there's a number of things on here that we still would have to subtract from that 1.8 to look at what's possible. Which is why I was talking about the 4 positions that we could do one time, and then they should be self-funding from then on. If they're not, we probably would have to depend on attrition to make up the difference and not replace people.
My recommendation would be that we decide what it is we want to do on this list, and then we use the general fund balance to pay for it.
Bonnie, I have a question. In the water sewer budget, it included in the calculation in the budget the water meters, the scale of thing, the 3 big ticket items that were also listed as capital improvements, but they're actually factored into the water sewer budget, so it's like we're counting them twice when we're talking about paying for it. So
Actually, I was going to go over capital later, but we've gone into different directions, so I'll address that later.
The other thing that I wanted to point out, and this is a small fry thing, with the watering conversation in Tom's budget for the trucks, it says option 2's current 2017 vehicle in good condition could be left in fleet. So I think there's a truck that can be used for that is already in the fleet.
It is, but he uses it for other things, so that's just something you have to remember.
Well, if they're they're leasing a new truck.
That's a replacement.
Yeah, but keeping it, because it says sell it, or you could keep it. That's what it says in Tom's. This item, the city to sell current owned vehicle, and then they're leasing another one. But they're wanting to lease this new one, and then it says the current 2017 could be kept. So I
will text him just to find out for sure.
I believe the new truck would be equipped to haul asphalt, and the old truck is not. The old truck is not worth much, so you can either keep it or sell it. Yeah, keep it. I mean, what are you going to sell it for, $1,000 or something? So you just keep it. But the other truck is equipped to haul asphalt.
Is that why it's so expensive?
So Bonnie, I think John's struggling, and I understand what he was saying now about the contingency and the surplus. So that's money that's sitting somewhere. Where is it going to go?
It will go into interest bearing, so that right now we're at 5%. Sorry, we're at 5%, so it would go into interest bearing, those types of things, because we projected quite a lot of interest.
So that doesn't go back into the fund balance?
It goes into investments.
Okay.
Because if you look at revenues, there is monies that are set aside and estimated on how much interest we're going to make on that.
So I think instead of the fund balance, it may be a better use of this money to take this 1.2 and put it into the budget.
I mean, you can do that if you want.
I think that's the answer. It keeps us revenue neutral, and it accomplishes everything, although we don't have to do everything. We can choose to, do whatever. I think, I think there's a couple of things here that are fire, rescue. We have to do those. We got to water our plants.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, if we do that, if we put the 1.2 million into our budget, what's the worst case scenario as a result of that? We know what the best case is.
No, I mean, like I said, that we, for example, do not achieve revenues. Like Mr. Ott was saying, the economy dies, the interest rates go way down. We projected, I don't have the exact number, 700,000 in there. We don't get 700,000. And then we're going to have to somehow, like I said, you're going to have to make up the 700,000, or you're going to have to lay people off if we can't.
That scenario is not going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months. Pretty confident in that.
But I mean, there's always that possibility or danger, if you will. I'm not sure. I mean, we basically have $1.2 million that's just sitting there that hasn't been budgeted. I'm not sure why, but nobody can seem to provide an answer to it. So I'm not sure why we don't put it to use in the budget. I'm just struggling with that.
And besides, if the economy tanks, people will drink more and we'll get more from the ABC.
If you have something to say about me, why don't you just say it directly?
So what did we hire last year? 10, 12 new people, something like that?
8? I think it was 8. No, was it more than that?
No, it was more than that. It was 5 firemen and 5 policemen alone.
Did we actually hire?
Yeah, well, the policemen are all full strength now.
Yeah,
So
everybody's,
now there's, how many positions are here? 17, 16? Yeah.
Well, 2 of them are part-time positions now. 2 of them are part-time positions that are already existing.
there's 11 requests, including fire and building and all of that.
I guess I hang out with a different class of people. The people I hang out with are, big group of them are on fixed incomes, retired fixed incomes. And inflation is cumulative. So we had a 10% inflation rate last year and somewhere around 6% this year. That doesn't mean it's 6%. That means you add to it each time. So altogether, you're probably around an 18% increase in inflation rate. And I'm just ballparking that. And their salary, their retirement has not gone up that much. So hiring X number last year and about the same number this year, I'm going to be standing and having you guys walk in front of me. Because I took a lot of noise last year. I did take a lot of noise about how many people were hiring and increasing the tax rate the way we did. And I'm not prepared to do that again, because there's 2 positions that I would agree with are pretty critical because they can save a life, and they should be self-paying as well, which is great. And there's 2 others that are not life-saving, but they should pay for themselves. And all the others are disposable.
I think, for the purpose of this conversation, let's just get really clear on what those positions are. We've got the list in front of them. We can talk about it. Yeah. That's part of this conversation. So there's there's going to be things for you that are non-negotiable. There's things, but there's also this ability to use this 1.2 million in contingency to pay for all of this. And frankly, I think that we're going to be fine with the tax rate we're at.
Are you taking any money out of fund balance for this budget?
Only for capital.
And how much is that?
It is 1,450,000 roughly.
Some of that's you might term as carryover. Is that money that or is that all new stuff?
That would be some replacements, some new programs, the city pier cross bracing. We got to figure out if we're going to do something with the deck, those kinds of things.
John, there is carryover. It's like 2 point something with the carryover from this year.
As Robert suggested, why don't we just go down the list and see which positions we want and we don't want?
They're in your packet for this week, and there are 11 of them. The first one is information technology staff member, 80,000 plus benefits. The second and third one go together. They're both under planning, and they're both should be paid for by revenues. That's the building inspector, additional building inspector, and additional permit technician. And then there's the fire inspector, ISO officer, And that should also be paid for by inspections and by fire, that type thing. And then item 5 is the recreation assistant, Parks and Rec. And then item 6 is the 2 full-time paramedics. And those should be paid for over time. 7 is public services, 1 promotion to a lead man and 2 laborers. Item 8 is the community building, part-time to full-time community building administrator. Item 9 is the Parks and Recreation Public Services, 1 staff member from Public Services going to Parks and Rec. I think we talked about 2 at one time going over, but y'all can decide on that. Item 10 is the Development Services, 1 additional code enforcement officer. I think we had code enforcement last week, and we've contracted with that gentleman. So we would not need an additional code enforcement officer. Item 11 is the, under the Development Services, the Historic District Planner. So there are really 10 positions. And again, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those positions would be in part, will be paid for by revenue. So next would be have to decide about IT, the recreation assistant, Parks and Rec, public services, the community building from part-time to full-time.
Yes, Joe Pat, I think you're looking at a different list. We're
I
looking
don't
at,
have that information.
yeah.
No, this is the list that is in the, I know it's not on this, but this is the list that she gave us, and that's new personnel requests in priority order. So there's a different list? No, it's
Well,
it may
that's-
not be in the same order.
Well, Brandon just went over, didn't Brandon just
Yeah.
go over this list? There's
Yeah.
nothing on there about Parks and Rec, for one thing, so now I'm even more baffled than I was.
So those are not asked for now, city manager? They were previously.
I know they wanted to transfer 2 people from Public Works to Parks and Recs.
Correct.
That was what I'm recalling.
Okay, so that makes it an even shorter list. So anyway, those are the positions, IT, fire, paramedics. So you decide which ones, building and grounds. So decide which ones you want to continue with or to hire, and ones that you don't. Pretty straightforward, and you see what the tax rate would be, you see how much it would cost to do all of it. You decide all or what part you want to accomplish.
But if the fire comes out of the fire fees, so it wouldn't be a tax increase for us, would it? I
No,
don't
it's all on the
comprehend that.
fire side.
Right, so I'm not comprehending.
The paramedics come out of us. Yeah.
But there we're saying that that's revenue attached to that, to your point, right?
I was saying, I was pretty sure we could not spend the excess fire fee on anything.
Right.
Except a fire truck or something like that.
But my thing is, if we're increasing service, paramedics is a whole nother level, for a small town like us to do this. So that then if it's backed with revenue, then that's what affords us the ability to do it, right? Regionalization's more than just water and sewer, the benefits of that. So if we're taking on new things like that, then the fact that it's got revenue behind it is what makes it possible for us.
Yeah, I'm saying that I would use some of the excess money to front that as opposed to raising taxes. Because at the end of the year, the fire department should be able to hand us back the money that we would then hand back to them for the following year. And the fees would always pay for those 2 personnel. Plus, if it saves 1 life, we made it's a bonus.
How is that budget operated, Bonnie? The EMS side accounting, does the fire department run that budget too, or is that a separate?
No, that's under the fire department. They hire a private company that does all the billing and all of that, but that's under the fire department. It's a separate department, we split it off, but the Chief Drew
Manages those
supervises that.
budgets.
Yep.
But we do know what EMS is costing. I mean, that's kept separately.
Yeah, it took a while because I think you just switched it last year.
Right.
So it's taken a while to kind of finesse it, but he feels pretty positive we've got it at a good point right now.
Yeah, before, I think we put in like $35,000 a year, and it cost them $250,000 a year to run the program. So that's why the money from Caswell Beach has been drained off. And then last year was the first year we fully budgeted it. Yep.
So for the ad valorem, the 2023 estimated actual is what we foresee for this year, and that's based off of last year's tax records and the 0.39 tax rate that we had. The proposed is we got a preliminary scroll from the county, and as of January, February of this year. So this was based off that, and then the revenue neutral rate, but it did not account for growth. So we feel comfortable moving that to $4,165,000 because we found out that did not account for growth. It just accounted for whichever houses were in there during that time for the January, February time of this year.
So that's pretty much the same as the estimated actual for 2023.
And that is correct, yes, sir. It's around that much because the $4,055,000 is just based on what they had at the time. So from February till now, it doesn't account for.
Are we considering this 50% for dependent coverage?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The 50% for dependent coverage, are we considering that?
I don't know.
Yeah, we as a board are considering that, yes. I think that's a fair statement.
So we just need to get through the new positions in taxation, then that will probably come up under the next budget deliberations.
I'll make a suggestion. I mean, maybe just go down. IT, yes, no? Does that seem, I don't need a vote, but I need a consensus, and we could
Yeah,
at
I'm
least
good with that.
figure out where we're at, and then if you took a quick break, we could figure it out.
So IT, you see it there, is that something you want a full-time position for?
The IT, if this were to fail, your plan B is to go to an RFP that would have a real fixed contract, and we would do a part-time employee again. What part of part-time is part-time, we'd still have to work out.
Yeah, they're not an employee, they'd be a consultant.
A consultant.
Right, yes, that's Plan B.
And right now, that consultant fee is $46,000?
That's estimated right now, yes, based on what has been spent in the past.
And we have someone in that position right now.
I understand, but there's a lot of companies out there.
Yes.
And it has not been bid, nor do you have a contract in 20 years.
My preference would be to keep the IT position as a part-time contract person.
I'm good with that.
I'm sorry, John, what'd you say?
I said that my preference is to keep the IT position as a part-time contract employee.
I agree.
Bonnie, is that going to be sufficient, do you think?
Well, I mean, that was my number one priority, because I think there's a need for full-time, but that's a decision you have to make, and if you decide that that's the route you want to go, then that's what I'll do as an RFP, and let's see what's out there. So, we will adapt.
Okay, streets, promotion to lead man, paver.
So we can actually use Powell bill money in addition to buying the dump truck to pay the salaries of employees when they are actively engaged in eligible Powell bill activities, i.e. repairing streets, sidewalks, et cetera.
That is correct. We just have to make sure we have a good record-keeping system.
I would like to see us, I'd like to see the pavers stay in there, but that we allocate, that we allocate Powell bill money to pay at least half the cost of them.
I have a question,
I'm good with it.
Patty. Paver, I guess, is the title of the job description. Do they do other things besides pave?
Yes,
Like-
they would have other responsibilities. We have things we want to be doing with the sewer lines, the water lines. We've got quite a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. So I talked to Mr. Stanley today about the use of Powell bill. I said that if we go that route, which has never been done here, but it's a good idea, we just got to make sure it's accounted for correctly. So if they go do a water job, then get them off the payroll with the Powell bills.
And I have to ask you, something I've already asked you, but I'm asking it in public now. We get, or at least I, get complaints from citizens that they see Public Works employees not working or not performing up to what the citizens think is standard. If we add, are we adding people to a staff that's not working up to snuff, or are we dealing with the performance issues?
Well, certainly, you know, and since I've been here, one thing that's never really been taken care of is disciplinary matters. And we have gone to a whole new level. We've done a lot more training. I know Mr. Stanley has talked to the guys that they are very visible out there, and we need to have a new way of doing business, and we need to get out there, and we're observed everywhere we go. And so that's important. I said to Patty today that she's working with Tom to get supervisory training for the foreman. They've never had training. They were just put into a position, and they don't know how to be supervisors. So I think we're on the road to changing the culture. And, you know, I have to admit that every public works department I've been in and worked with has that image because, for example, and I know Tom's going to laugh at this one, you see three people, one person's doing the work and the other three stand at the side of the road.
That's
looking
because
at
the
them.
public doesn't know what they're up to and what they have to
Exactly,
do.
exactly.
And so they criticize and they don't know. There's lots of times that is very necessary.
Yeah, but, you know, I'll be quite honest, Tom knows it. I mean, since I've been here, I've had to report to him twice that I've caught some of the employees goofing off.
So
We're
bottom
changing
line,
that.
if the current employees were working at, working up to standard, would we need to add people?
For paving, yes, I still think you're going to have to. And for the water and sewer, definitely.
And if we hire two more and we find one or two that are not, then we have to let them go.
Now, if I will say this, though, if you hire a private company, say, to do cemeteries, that certainly loosens up time, a lot of time, for some of Tom's staff to go in a different direction.
So the newly vacated position on Tom's squad, can that be just converted into a paver?
The newly,
Isn't there an empty spot now?
because somebody we just hired left. We literally just hired, remember the 4 part-timers went into 2?
Yeah.
We hired 2 people, one just literally left and took a different job.
And don't we have another vacancy as well?
No, they're all full then.
Okay. So of that vacancy that just left, can that be turned into a paver?
Well, I mean, they could certainly be doing other things, you know, other than paving. I think
No, I'm sorry. So we have an FTE that's gone. So we have a vacant FTE. Is the salary of the vacant FTE currently just about the same salary as a paver?
Roughly, yeah.
So if we just took that FTE and changed the title to paver when we hire a new person, that would be one less new FTE that we would have to have. The question is, can you go down on that FTE from whatever they were doing before?
Well, then somebody's losing something somewhere, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we hired 2 people
For a reason.
for a reason, to keep the grass cut, because we weren't getting it all done appropriately and fast enough and well enough, and so that's why we hired those 2 people. So I don't know how. I mean, if you
I think,
assign one of those a different job, then I mean, you still got the other job that needs to be done. I don't.
when you hire people, they're not necessarily trained in handling asphalt. And I think this is what he's trying to do, so that we can go around and patch. They have to know how to rake. They have to know what to do. A normal guy that cuts grass will not know that.
Do we have any idea what contracting all of the street work would be?
Well, for the bigger jobs, you do contract that out right now. I think the thought behind, I don't want to speak for Alderman Lombardi, but I think the thought behind it is contractors are so busy right now, they are not going to come in and do little jobs. And we do not have right now anybody who really does that. And I think, again, I don't want to speak for you, but I think it's that thought of let's start getting some of these other streets done. That's why
You're
the power bill
absolutely right.
money's left
That's
over.
exactly the case.
We can use $65,000 of Powell bill to offset the costs of this new paving team, if you will.
I think this is going to be eventual. I don't think this is going to happen as soon as they're hired. They'll be doing other things, but we're going to develop that paving and street maintenance over time. It's not going to happen as soon as they're hired.
All right, community building,
I'm sorry, did we get a consensus on the
I think-
streets?
I think so, yeah, to do
Great,
that,
thank you.
yes. And,
What was it?
yeah, using Powell bill money. Help pay part of it.
for
So what are
half
we
of it.
using the power bill money for now that we're not going to be using it for tomorrow?
Mostly street repair, but we're going to do it ourselves. We'll have more control over it.
Yeah, that's the other thing is we have a lot of Powell bill money. We just haven't been using it. So, instead of contracting, we'll have a little bit of contracting out and then some that will be done by an in-house crew.
I'm sorry, to clarify my head. So it's like 330,000. It's not a lot of money. So when you say we haven't been using it, we haven't been taking the 330,000, or we've been banking the 330,000?
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I think we've been banking it.
Really?
It's about, what, 175 a year or something
Somewhat
like
like
that?
I thought 145.
And we haven't been using it because we didn't have the people to do sidewalks and patching.
And again, if you go out for contractors and they're only, say, 4 streets, for example, nobody's going to take it on. They're not going to move their equipment and do 4 streets.
So when we're advertising, if we were to go in this direction, there's a certain amount of PR that needs to go along with this. Because if I have to ask the question about, well, we're going to use PAL money, the first thing I think about is what are we giving up? So we're actually not giving up anything, is what you're telling me, except money in a bank account sometime. So a good hunk of this would be revenue neutral. I don't know what that percentage would be, but if you're putting $175,000 a year away, you're making profit on that, literally 5% now, but are we using this math that we're going to take the $175,000, instead of banking it, we're going to put it towards salaries?
I think that's what's being proposed.
That's an easier sell than just.
You also have to deduct what it would cost to hire a contractor to do this. To have a contractor come in and do potholes is very expensive, so we're not even taking that in consideration.
Well, we haven't done that in 35 years. We don't fill potholes,
Well,
except we
but
put a little
that's-
coal patch
well,
in
that's
and some
just-
dirt, so.
but that's
so
just the
I
point.
can show you them everywhere.
But as we're doing sewer work, these roads are gonna have to be done.
Yeah, but when we do sewer work, that's part of the major funding for the sewer project. If we do it correctly, we had to ask the legislature to help us out on House Street, but that should be funded into the total cost of the project, as opposed to we're going to send our two guys out to pave Caswell Street. They're not doing that.
No, absolutely not. This is for small work, for hand work, that's it. Sidewalks, everything.
Yes, and it's annually 145,000, the contribution, according to the budget.
And we have 300 and what?
62.
Okay. All right, yeah, Powell bill money from that bill many years ago that the legislature passed for us, for all municipalities. All right, community building, part-time to full-time.
I just want to say that that position used to be a full-time position, and we've put more and more requests with streaming and all of that, so I'm in favor of this converting to plus it makes money. The community building still is at a profit. I noticed in the Public Works budget, they had like $205,000 for building maintenance and stuff, but there was no line item about a particular building. So I don't know if the money, I don't know how you see putting the community money, does it then go into the Public Works budget, whatever's over, or does it stay in the general fund, or?
Yeah, if you're talking about just building maintenance, yeah, that's if they need any kind of maintenance done, or they have, cleaning services or whatever. But if something Tom needs, then it either comes out of Tom or this building here. But yes, you were right about the revenues. I mean, the projection is if you have a full-time person, you're going to be bringing in a lot more with revenues. And plus, they're going to cover the night meetings that you've been requesting, like planning meetings and things like that.
I agree.
All right, good. There's a full-time position there.
I'm sorry, I'm going to still have to draw, only because I want to be able to sell this stuff, okay? So this person that would be full-time for this building, how are they going to generate money?
Because we've got somebody 100% working on getting events into this building. Right now, Elena's the one who's doing it somewhat, and then also having all her other duties. And so we're hoping that somebody full-time in here, they make their salary and more.
They would be doing marketing, operations, supervising staff, because there's cleaning staff and yada yada stuff related to that, and responsible for the streaming of all the meetings. And like I said, this used to be a full-time position for just the community building, so this isn't new, and it's already half funded. There's only, it's funded now as a part-time position, so this is only the other half of that.
I happen to think this is the best wedding venue in North Carolina, or maybe anywhere. And many wedding venues are 5, 6, 10,000 just for the evening. Maybe we should, in the coming year, with the help of a full-time community building person, look at raising our fees.
All right, and that's a very green thing to do, raising those fees, so that's good. We'll do it. Next will be the fire inspector, ISO officer. That seems logical there. And then the two paramedics, agreement there. And it will, decrease response time and increase level of care. Then under development services, we have the building inspector, permit technician, code enforcement officer. Well, that should be taken care of by the gentleman that was just hired. And then historic preservation, historic downtown planner. So, board, what is your...
So are we
Two of
hiring?
those will be paid for through revenue, the building inspector and the permit technician.
So can somebody provide some information about the code enforcement officer? Is that a new
That
person?
would be a
Is that-
second code enforcement. With the thought of right-of-way enforcement, we would need someone. Now, there's either you can hire a body, or right now, we're advertising for the vacancy we have for the code enforcement. And then as the supplement, you could also use the private company instead of another body.
And how much are we paying the private company?
I'd have to look that up. Give me a sec.
With this, the gentleman that gave us a talk on code enforcement seemed that, couldn't they handle that whole thing without hiring a second?
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
He seemed like
depending on the cost, it might be a possibility, but.
He seemed like he could do it.
Yeah, I had actually marked that position off. I thought he was just going to do the whole thing, but if he's capable of doing it, I think one person doing it would be.
I'm just waiting
He
for
had a lot
Travis
to say about right-of-way, too, remember?
I'm just waiting for Travis to respond. Because right now, he's $47 hourly, 24 per week, and 24 hours per week. So $47 hourly.
He in one afternoon.
Pardon?
He in one afternoon identified more things than all the code enforcers in the history of Southport. And I'm not even trying to be facetious about it. It was just spectacular.
But
To be fair, though, nobody had ever instructed the code enforcement officer to go out and tour the entire city and write everything down, because our code enforcement has been done on a complaint-driven basis.
that's the way the policy was written when Chris was hired, was complaint-driven. And that's what he was following. So it's just the way it was done.
So I just rounded it up to 50 times 24 times 52 is 62,400. So that's less than somebody with one person with benefits. So
It's also only half-time, too.
well, 3 days. It's 3 days a week.
Right now,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm good with all of the positions with the exception of that code enforcement officer 2. So building inspector, permit tech,
Right.
and the historic downtown planner.
Unfortunately, I have some heartburn with hiring a historic planner right now when we've barely even gotten the historic district thing started. It just feels like a bit of an overreach to me.
How close are they, Robert, to presenting us with regulations and so forth that we have to approve and actually launching?
The answer is not close enough. We've made really good progress, Lo. In our last meeting, I encouraged them to continue moving forward with getting us something that we can approve, understanding that over time it needs to be, it may need to be adjusted or changed. But hopefully, if they're going to start meeting every couple of weeks now, so I think they're meeting at least 2 times a month, and with the idea that, within a few months, 2 to 3 months, we might have something that we can approve.
John, I appreciate what you said. However, this is what I would say to that. for thought is that we are so far behind planning, and planning is a larger conversation than new construction. And, you know, we joke about Travis drinking from a fire hose, but we're going to burn our people out. We have prioritized historic preservation as a priority for our community, number one. Number two, the downtown planner. It's more than just historic preservation planner. And I think they can't get here fast enough, quite honestly, because we're placing so many demands on staff right now that I am like double support of this.
Actually, John, I'm in support. We don't have anything on paper. And if next year comes around and there's enough there to justify it, then there's enough time to justify it. But this is getting to be runaway on how many people we're hiring. Every year we're going 10 or 11 more people. And we can't do it. We're not growing that fast. How many people do we have in this city?
One of the issues that we have is that we are so reactive to every single thing that happens. Something happens and we say, oh shit, that shouldn't happen. And we come back to this table with a recommendation from the planning board that should have happened a long time ago. And we need somebody to go through this stuff and say, you know what, someday somebody could come here and say, I'm going to build a 5-story building right on that corner. We need someone that has the foresight to, you know, help us and guide us and make sure that we're not reactive anymore, that we're proactive. So what are we without our downtown? Without our waterfront, without all of this?
Plus, if we are actually looking at doing a UDO update sometime soon, that's going to spin off Travis or Marine, and you know, we're going to. I imagine that the historic downtown planner will not just be confined to the few blocks that are the historic district. There will be other areas, and they may want to expand the historic district.
And Rich, to your question about nothing on paper, part of that is staff. We also, if we have staff's contribution in a larger way, they can only get so much done. I'm just telling you, and I know you go to the planning board meetings too, and I know you see how much Travis and Maureen are doing. We're so far behind. This is an effort to get us to where we need to be.
I think this person can look at the yacht basin overlay that needs to take place, can look at the entrance corridor overlay that needs to so for me, this is an important, Travis
Are
went
they
on to talk
subordinate
about,
to Travis?
I'm sorry?
I would think so.
Are they subordinate to is this position
Yes.
subordinate to Travis?
Yes.
So you're actually just, as we expand we go from historic district, you basically want to hire another planner. If you're going to go beyond, then it's not a historic planner. That's just one more of his duties.
Well, on his priority list, this is number 4. So out of 4 he's asked for, this is the last one he put forward. It's not his highest one.
Yeah, one of the other things that Travis recommended, and we need to, seriously find a way forward on, and I spoke with you about this, Rich, is the, changing the zoning, because we have R10 zoning in the downtown historic district, and there may be 5 lots that are conforming. If that. So that, we really need to look at that as an option. And for those people that don't understand what that means, is on a non-conforming lot, you have the ability to set your home closer to the sidewalk, closer to your property line. For those of us that do have conforming lots, if something ever happened to the home and it was gone and I rebuilt, I'd have a setback of 25 feet, which would be devastating to our historic character. So getting that done, I think, is important as well.
So just adding a planner, and now you realize what Thomas Lloyd was going through, one planner for all of the work and developments that were coming in it was too much. And so it'd be like, if there's not enough work, there will be enough work. So going ahead and hiring this other planner, why not get ahead of this instead of being behind? And I agree with the conversation in terms of hiring an individual that can help us do this, because as you know, this county, it's not just Southport. I mean, they come here, but the whole county is growing, Brunswick County and Southport in particular. So expanding our development services and our planners, I think that is definitely, we're moving in the right direction in that regard. And then building and grounds. Very strongly recommend, of course, that we got to water our plants, as Alderman Carroll has said, and I totally agree. I think the beauty that these planter boxes bring to our city is fantastic. And in terms of the cemeteries,
Can I ask a question about the plant? What's the 15,000? Is that somebody that's going to do it?
It'd be part-time at, would we say 15 or 12, 15? 15 an hour.
And that's for 1,000 hours report.
So that's 1,000 hours.
Okay.
Somehow or another, I thought this was a machine, but it's a part-time person, right?
Yes.
Well, it has a machine that
There's
goes
equipment.
with it. And a machine.
And
Yeah.
in response to the question about the truck, Tom said, yeah, we wouldn't have to sell the dump truck, but that's a heck of a huge truck to be using for a plant waterer.
He's talking about a dump truck. It says current 2017 vehicle is in good condition and could be left in fleet for second engineer or an additional truck for new employees. That's not the same truck.
What he's saying is what's going to be given up is the dump truck, because there's a new dump truck.
Well, there's a whole narrative in here, and I do know we own like a 2017. I do know that. So he may be confused about that, but this is his narrative about it. And it says approving this item will allow the city to sell currently owned vehicle in current condition and mileage. And so, but it's a 2017. That dump truck is over 20 years old.
But he said that it was in good condition and we could keep it if we wanted.
Right. So that's why I'm saying holding on to that one for the watering would make it very cost effective.
Considering how much trouble we had filling the part-time summer positions last year for the cemeteries, do we have any idea whether we'll be able to get a part-time plant waterer?
No, I have no idea.
I would like to do it.
I think the beauty of the job will attract someone to do it. I really do.
And it's
Karen
more
says
than
she'll do it
it's
for
more
free.
than the planter boxes. It would be all of our beds and things around town. It's a lot of things that would be fun to do. And the other thing is, you know, when you looked at the image that Charlotte uses, they actually use like a, I'm going to use the word off-road vehicle, but some other kind of vehicle than an actual truck. So maybe in the future we'll try it with the truck we own, see how we do, and then go forward.
Yeah, and if we need a smaller vehicle like they use at Charlotte with a sprayer, we can certainly go that route. But I think getting this program started and getting those planter boxes watered, these beautiful flowers and these 30 extra planter boxes that'll be coming, I think this was a very worthwhile project. In terms of the cemeteries, if we can't hire enough staff to do it, I mean, we just have to, you know, keep them up. And they've been doing a good job. If you look at the cemeteries, they look good right now, and they have capability to replace the few of the signs and that type thing. So the cemeteries are not in terrible shape at all. They actually look pretty good, and we've been trying to keep them up, and we'll continue to do so. And the cemetery committee will get started meeting next month once we get through the budget process, and we'll move forward. But it is our responsibility, whether it's the right-of-way, our parks, cemeteries, they need to be groomed, they need to be kept up. And I compare it to, look how well people keep their homes up in Southport. The city should be doing the same with the right-of-way in our parks and that type thing. So whichever way the board wants to go with that, as long as it's being done, is the main thing, and done at quality. Not it's speed versus quality. So it needs to be quality. So your thoughts on that?
A question on this. This is bid 1 and bid 2. Are we budgeting for the higher bid amount?
No, we put the low.
Okay.
How does Tom, has anybody talked to Tom Stanley and how he feels if he can continue with the cemeteries?
Certainly, if it ended up that they no longer had to do the cemeteries, that frees them up to do a heck of a lot.
This is one that
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I guess this is one of them where the committee, we're getting the committee up and rolling. It'd be nice to see what they had to say about how best to move forward with this. I know it's important.
But this has to be done regardless whether you have a cemetery committee or not. We're talking about just the mowing and that type thing, the upkeep. If a hurricane comes, someone goes in there and cleans those cemeteries up, that type thing. This is just standard maintenance.
Is that bid for both 3 cemeteries or 2?
Yep.
Just
2 of them, I'm sorry.
Just no John Smith, okay.
Right, the ones that we, by ordinance, we are supposed to be doing, yes.
And we never did get an answer to total man-hours on average to do the 2 cemeteries, did we?
No.
Because it might rain someday and people might get called off, and I'm not sure how that
That's,
I'm not sure how that figures into a mathematical equation, but, so we don't know how many man-hours we're going to now, if we went to this contract, how many man-hours would be available to do other things.
They have not figured that out as of yet. It's hard unless, like Tom was saying, they actually kind of punch in and punch out. But if he needs if there's an emergency, he takes them right out of there. And so.
Well, that doesn't elongate the number of man-hours that needs to be done. That's a fixed number.
They have not put that together.
Okay.
Rich, I could tell you that working in the cemetery in the past, that Smithfield Cemetery is so hard to get around.
Oh, I think it's a big number.
Oh,
I do.
There's a
point
lot
is-
of man-hours involved.
I think it's a big number. I think we'll have a lot of extra manpower hours that we'll now be able to allot to something else, but we're hiring more people for a department that we haven't figured out how many man-hours are we going to save, and then is it 80 hours? Well, if I'm saving 80 hours a week, then
Yeah.
I don't need 2 more people to do something else.
I don't know if you're going to get an accurate, if they want 2 people over at recreation, you're going to have some people. It's better to have a few extra, because things come up in public works that you can't budget and you can't imagine.
But the 2 people that go, I don't know, do we agree on 2 people? I think it was 1.
No, two.
Oh, 2. So if we send 2 people over to Parks and Rec, theoretically, they'll be working, and public services, I always say call it public works, will not have to do that task. So that's a wash right there, right?
But they're still using 2 of their men that they need now.
To do the work that they're going to do.
Or
for the
need
other
the work that
department.
they're doing now.
Correct,
You
but
need some
that
extra
work that they're
people.
doing now will be lessened when they go to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, but we've added so many people in all these departments, and Public Works seems to always get the least consideration.
I'm
I'm
not sure
I'm familiar with the work,
Yeah.
and I know what comes up, and I know what he needs. And he needs those 2 people.
I just want to correct one thing, Tom. He said that it's for all 3 cemeteries, not 2. The private contractor.
I
are we
don't
doing
think
John
by
Smith?
law we
That's
can do
private.
that. I don't think that by law we can ask the citizens of Southport to pay for maintenance of a private cemetery. It's private in the sense that it's a nonprofit foundation.
You're doing it right now.
We are helping them out.
You're doing it right now.
Yeah, the city has been helping out John Smith, and, you know, it seems there's the legal thing to do or whatever, and then there's what seems neighborly and right to help them out, and it's up to the board. I mean, we have been doing that, and
I was
It's
under,
a city asset.
I thought we were
Yeah.
just doing it on like special occasions or something.
Like after a storm or to help.
yeah, there's not a lot of grass or anything.
On
Yeah,
a-
there's
on a
not a
cleanup
lot of
day or
grass, there's
something.
not a
But,
lot.
I mean,
Just
we're not over there on a
there are no
regular
stones.
basis
No, just after
doing
storms and
things.
things like that.
And we
There's a lot
shouldn't
of
be.
volunteers too. I know beautification helps them out too.
If we're talking about hiring somebody to cut grass in John Smith Cemetery, we need to rethink that. I mean, I support John Smith Cemetery, but we can't do that.
There's no grass there to mow or anything. Yeah.
So maybe that $70,000 is less if they were factoring.
We would negotiate that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we just help them out after a storm, that type thing, but it is not on a routine maintenance. John Smith is not. But the other 2, of course, need to be. Okay. Okay, so what is the board's, we've been through all of these, and it looks like,
It's,
Benefits, what about the benefits?
well, and it says up top, we didn't talk about Parks and Recreation, and it says equipment, so I didn't know what that was. It's the 3rd item.
Actually, the equipment ends up to be for somebody, if it gets switched over, the 2 people or any kind of people over to her, but it ends up, she put it in her general fund budget, so I was gonna, let you know that we really don't need that now, it can come out. She's got it in her general fund.
okay.
I don't know what you were talking about.
I don't see Parks
I
and
don't
Rec.
see it on this form.
Oh, because it was taken off.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you. All right, so, other than the, full-time IT position, and, it looks like this board is good with these hirings, and, the question now is how to pay for it.
Well, code
We crossed
enforcement.
off one, didn't we?
Code
The-
enforcement.
Yeah, well,
Code
code
enforcement.
enforcement is, yeah, I mean, that's,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a consensus on historic downtown planner.
I think that's. No, we shouldn't vote, but we'll put it up for, but I think
Not
that's.
voting, it's not voting if we just say it's to achieve a consensus. The fact that we raise our hands doesn't constitute a
Doesn't.
vote. The fact that
Right,
we
'cause
take a
it's-
vote
It's not binding.
is what makes a vote.
It's not binding.
What we're planning to do is, once we get consensus on a number of items, we're gonna come back to you
Yeah.
and say, here's the bottom line.
Well, I'm good with I think that's important to be ahead of this.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Sorry, the only other one was with the 2 pavers, there was a request to do a promotion for a lead man and to oversee that whole paving crew, so.
Again, you're talking $5,000,
Yeah.
so.
And then just the cemetery, did you want us to try to go private on that? And then also the last one is the 50% for dependent coverage, or some percentage.
Yeah, the health insurance. Dependent coverage, how does the board feel about that?
Let's get rid of the cemeteries first.
Oh, no, we're gonna, they have a bid at 70,000. They're gonna make sure that it doesn't include John Smith. And,
Less.
yeah. Health insurance, 50% for dependent coverage.
Bonnie, didn't you send something out from different towns that did different dependent coverage?
Yes.
And there
it's-
wasn't many that did that, right?
It's a mixed bag. Patty, in her presentation to you, I think there were 2 that did, and they were at 50%, and the rest did not.
But they also, the 2 that did do dependent coverage did not do 100% individual. One was 92 and one was 80, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the info that, while Paul's going up, the info that she provided last time was Oak Island and Sunset Beach both help subsidize the cost of family and dependent coverage.
So Patty did an excellent job sending out a monkey survey, a survey monkey, got backwards. And I believe it's about 22 or 23 employees did come back affirmatively. They'd like to be considered for dependent coverage. The 110,000 number includes a 10% contingency. In case we hired a couple new people this year, we could add 2 more people to the number.
Right, there were 47 that filled out the survey. It's sort of interesting. 23 would like it, and 24 did not want any dependent coverage on that. And
Were they aware of the cost?
No. Of what
See-
it was going to cost the city, you're saying?
No, their cost.
I don't, it was a short question, so I would say probably not.
Yeah, so
No.
we did I mean, I don't think we have enough information. This is a feel-good for this board to say yes, but I think that even the 23 that agreed, when they see the cost, it's going to be a different outcome.
I agree with that, Robert.
I would say we just went through a whole lot of feel good, so, so if that's the criteria for throwing something in the trash can, then we should go back to start over again.
I'm not
If
throwing
it turns out to be 23 people that want it, the total cost would be 110,000 or whatever it is. If they see how much it is and they don't want it, then we won't spend that much. And so I would like to give the employees the option, because they are at their price range, at their salary range. They don't have a whole lot of options out there. But when we say we pay 100% for the employee pays nothing for their health care?
As far as I know, no,
You don't pay
Just-
anything for your health care?
no.
For your insurance, yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay. And so that, I think it's an opportunity for us to actually, rather than just keep saying we enjoy our employees, we actually start looking at giving them a benefit that might help some of them.
so give them the option, and I think certainly they might find something cheaper on the exchange, but just give them the option to do it, yeah. And it's part of the benefits of working at a great organization.
I'm for it, because if they don't take advantage of it, we don't spend the money. So I agree with you, Rich. I just think that the survey was not complete.
Do we know why only 47 responded? I
No,
know
we
that
didn't go
was-
into that at all. It was a quick down and dirty survey, just to see if we could get a feel for it, so no, I have no idea. They could have coverage from their spouse.
The 74 that were surveyed,
47.
okay. We got 47 responses, but we do have 74 people on the insurance, correct?
Well, that should have gone out to every employee. Yeah. All right. So that covers that. We'll offer it, and if they take it, that's good. If not, as you said, we save that money. All right. So we've gotten through the new positions and taxation. The time is 2:46. I don't want to wear this board out. Do you want to take a break and come back? Do you want to schedule another meeting? What's your pleasure?
The only thing is, I do have a closed session.
Okay.
Yeah, and plus,
Yeah.
we still, well, we need to talk about capital at some point, right? And then we also need to talk, I know I've got at least one item that I want to add to the budget, so.
Yeah, and I've got some conversations.
We can keep going. I'm good. I just didn't want to
We,
wear the board out.
Can we take just a 5-minute break
Yeah,
and then?
take a
or
10-minute
no?
break. That'll be fine. Let's break
we
for
do
10
that?
minutes, and we start back at 3 o'clock. It's 2:47. All right, we will, it's 3 o'clock, we'll get started so we can continue on this budget journey. All right, Madam City Manager, what's next on, since we've gone through the
If you,
new positions taxation?
Let me just, I do have one quick question. A consensus is the 5% cost of living, does that work? And more importantly, for part-timers, is that something you want to consider also, the 5%? That's in your budget. Not for the part-timers, but for the full-timers.
That's a 5% COLA?
COLA.
Plus potential 5%.
For full-time. But I'm just saying the part-time I don't have. So, I mean, I would recommend at this point you probably do something for them with COLA.
I agree.
Can I just ask the question so we've at least asked it? How much?
5%.
No, dollars.
Oh, I don't know, we'd have to figure out exactly the amount of part-timers. You might, I'll work on this while you guys are talking about something else.
Just, you don't have to get it down to the penny, you know, just kind of ballpark it for me.
Let's see. So in there, the master plan, again, 100,000. We took the 2 patrol vehicles, turned them into leases, so we don't have to worry about that. The dump truck is Powell bill. We have 250,000 for the stormwater issues. And then the city pier cross bracing at 87,000. And again, this is coming out of the fund balance at the tune of, well, I'll total it up in a minute. But one of the suggestions I have for you to get this tax rate down is Park and Rec. Right now, Heather has under capital equipment, 20,000 for the gazebo roofs, 15,000 for a storage container for some equipment that's over at the animal control facility, and 53,000 for equipment if we move people over to her. So if we were going to do any of those, as well as this decking, we got to make a decision, then I would say move it over to capital and get it out of the general fund, and that'll help with the tax rate too. So I guess I need a decision on what we're going to do with the decking, which is replace as is for 16,000. Trex decking is 82,000. I almost died when I saw that one. And treated deck is 50, I'm rounded off, 59,000.
What was that last one?
Treated.
59 for treated deck.
How much was
59,000.
concrete? Did you get a bid for concrete?
The 16 as is, if you just redid it.
How much for grass?
Well, hang on a minute. For the, replace the decking with wood is 16?
No. Go ahead. Oh, Randy, you don't have a mic. You want to come up or?
I can do it from here. From what I understand, it was 16,000 for a general concrete. We could add more to it to make it a decorative concrete. Then the other 2, Bonnie, and I don't have it in front of me. What was the Trex amount? That was the 80?
82.
82, and then I think it was 60 for regular treated wood. And just to be aware, if we do something on this, it really can't happen till January because it's such a large project. We are so booked between now and January. That's when we block time for major work.
I really hate the idea of concrete and love the idea of grass with a red carpet for the brides to walk down.
This is what I'd say. The maintenance on trying to keep grass there under those trees would be far more than a decorative concrete. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, the deck, under some portions of the deck, it has original concrete decking that was built over. Is that correct?
That is, when this building was originally built, the observation deck was not here, and they had put a round half-moon concrete deck there. and then we built the observation deck, and then 3 years later, we built a connecting deck between the building and the observation deck. So there's a large portion out there already with concrete that the deck is over. So for the idea of the grass, for the amount of traffic, and as Karen, I want to ditto about the trees and everything, that would end up becoming a real mess with the mud and everything. I don't think it would work, because we have trouble on the sides of the decking when it's rain and everything, that it becomes really bad.
And if you have a rainstorm before a wedding and then you try to put chairs out there, it's not going to work.
You know, we
On
have
the
this
concrete
beautiful decking floor in here. I mean, to mirror something nice outside, I think would be the way to go.
So you're
I really
talking
do.
about treated wood?
Or just some sort of,
You can do
Decking.
you can do concrete with a wood press stained. I mean, you can do something that's more decorative and
Very
last.
expensive. Have you priced it yet, Andy?
Tom Stanley priced it. He said from the 16,000, which was for regular, he said only a couple of more thousand to get it. That's what he said to us when he gave us the
Somebody
16.
I know just put a sidewalk in, which is from me to you. And the stamped thing on it was going to raise it by like 30%.
Well, the thing is, it's a coloring, not a stamped, because we really have trouble with the stamp look, because the chairs would end up being unlevel. It's a straight concrete with a coloring in it.
It's a
That would be streaked to look like wood.
Who have we asked the people who actually rent this building out whether there's a lot of brides that want to get married on the Walmart parking deck, or do they want to get married on something that's nice out there?
Well, I don't think I've
There's a
asked
reason why men
anybody
don't
their
get
choice
asked to
between
weddings.
Walmart and the community building. I don't think that's come up in my conversation.
No, I'm talking about if we have just concrete out here.
Well, not exactly, because it's never been an option, but I know it was here for 4 years before, and we never had any issue. I was here during that time.
Could
I'm
I just
opposed
make a
to concrete.
suggestion, because this could be a long conversation, that we put money in capital for decking, and then we will bring this back as an in-depth discussion item. So I think if we need to add some more money, we will, if you want to go to the most expensive. But I think we're going to need I would even invite contractors here, so they can kind of explain the difference.
I agree with that, because I'd like to take some time to really look, because these were things that Tom started the conversation just because we felt under the gun with the budgeting. But I think if we had some time, we could come here with a lot more options.
And because there's concrete there, it doesn't necessarily mean we could butt up against it, because it may be cracked, you know.
Yeah, one of the things that we might do, Bonnie, is, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, just happened. We're trying to make decisions that are aesthetic, that are environmentally. What if we hired somebody to create a design, create a concept, talk to us about the grasses that would work just fine there?
I mean, you certainly could, it's just I got to get pricing on all of that.
I think it would be better money. I'd like to spend that money. Would be my recommendation, so that we have someone else giving us advice and us not just doing it.
so a consultant looking at a design, looking at grass versus concrete versus decking. Okay.
Isn't that something our staff can do, though? I mean,
Well, this is a prime example of thank you for making the part-time to full-time position for the community building. This could be the very first thing they work on.
there you go.
I
I
think
think I
that,
was thinking somebody like a nursery or a landscape design, Mr. Pender. I don't know.
I think if you,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
We have to know what we're putting in the budget, so I can try to get a hold of somebody and see if they can have something by the next time you meet.
If we go with wood, we've got to go with pressure treated. You can't go with regular wood.
Well, if we just put some money in the budget, then, I mean, can't we just, for, the deck, can't we just use some of that if we need to hire somebody to give us some ideas, and then we're not under any kind of time constraint.
And if you don't use it, it goes back into the capital fund.
So, I don't know if I'm looking at the right capital list, but is it this one out of your PowerPoint?
I utilize that, except the decking is new, you have to remember.
I did, I wrote that in. But of this, you took out the 120 for 2 patrol vehicles. The dump truck's coming out of this because it's POW bill money. Then you were going to talk about the water meters, the SCALA, and the lift, I guess, since it's accounted for in the water sewer budget and this budget.
I'm just having him check, because I did not think they were in there, but I will double check. And then, yes, and the only other suggestion I have is just moving some of the capital items from Park and Rec over to the capital, and then that helps with the general fund tax rate. By the way, I'm sorry, Brandon just realized Melanie put in a COLA for the part-timers, so I guess that's been answered.
Yeah, if you look on page 47, it has the water meters, water meter boxes, water meter nodes, the 400 additional, and then it has the SCALA thing. Yeah, security, SCALA upgrade.
Supervisory control and data acquisition. How cool is that, right? SCADA.
And then it has...
Supervisory control and data
and
acquisition.
it had the lift
There we
generator.
go. Let's check your SCADA.
And I believe it had the lift generator. I saw that somewhere. Yeah, it did. It's item 5,500. And then SCALA was 5,800, and then the water meters were 5,900. Accounted for in the water sewer budget.
You can take it out anyways, because that's what I was going to say, but I just want to double check and make sure it's covered somewhere, that's all.
I got you. The only reason I say, rather than using, since you've got it accounted for in the sewer budget, then it frees up general fund to use however you want, rather than enterprise fund.
Right.
Is it unrealistic to think that if we pass the cross beams for the dock, that they would be done before September?
Not sure. I know, I will double check with Heather, but I know that Jesse was pretty busy until August to work on another project, so I will just make sure.
I mean, September, October is our high hurricane time.
And that's it for capital, so.
Okay. So we'll put money in for potential deck, just so we'll have it there. You're moving Parks and Rec, that.
Oh, that's the
General
other
fund.
one. The only other thing is, are we going to move 2 people over to Park and Rec? Or 1 person, or anybody?
So not moving anyone from plant services to Parks and Rec, okay. COLA for part-time is in. City Pier cross beams. Okay. All right, so that's the capital list. Okay. All right. So, any further deliberations we need on this right now? Any from the board?
The budget
Yes.
as a whole, yeah,
Yes.
well, I'd like to bring up
Please.
something that I would like for us to do to fund and begin. I think we need desperately to create some kind of a parking management plan for downtown Southport, given we are quite literally being overrun with visitors. And I don't say that lightly, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody. It's a fact of life. I get that 40 years ago we were searching for a path forward economically because our traditional employers had been devastated. And, you know, offering ourselves as a tourist location made a lot of sense, and it worked well. Randy did a heck of a job attracting people to Southport. But I feel like we need to raise the white flag on it, and it's too much. I'd really like for us to I'd propose putting $50,000 in the budget to begin the process of writing up an RFP and talking to some consultants on what it would cost to come up with a all-inclusive parking management plan for downtown that, you know, may or may not include parking meters, pay kiosks, parking stickers for residents, maybe areas that are marked off as resident parking only. I think we've gotten too far away from Southport being a city for its residents. I think our residents are crowded out. I mean, I know of one retailer on House Street that closed and moved because their product did not appeal to tourists, and none of the locals could ever come downtown and find a parking place and shop there. And I think we've really excluded our residents from their ability to enjoy their own town, and I think we got to somehow claw that back. And I realize it won't be popular among some people. I hope the businesses will realize, though, that there are residents of Southport that will patronize their businesses and will support their businesses and can't because there's just so many other people coming into town. People that live here can't get to them. So that would be my recommendation, is that we find $50,000 to begin the process of doing some kind of a parking management plan.
That could go under the capital improvements, John, because we've got a lot of leeway there now.
John, I totally agree with you. Sometimes some of these restaurants downtown, you've got to call 1 week in advance to get a reservation. So if you want to go, you have to do it a week in advance, which is ridiculous.
You look at the line. I mean, we all see it. There's a line of cars literally 3 miles long coming in here every single day at 11 o'clock.
You come from River Mist, you'd know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just out of control. We have become the town center for this entire part of Brunswick County, and I don't think that's really what we're intended to be. I don't think it's appropriate for us to be, and I think it really degrades the quality of life for our citizens.
But we are the downtown of Brunswick County. We really are. When you think of the other or surrounding cities, I mean, who has a downtown like this? Nobody. And so and it's so ironic to have this conversation, right, Randy, as we're celebrating Travel and Tourism Week. So how appropriate. But you're right. We are. The parking is in traffic, and it certainly is a dilemma, and I agree this is something we should look into to see what our options are for not just the downtown, the whole city, the whole waterfront corridor, the whole city. How can we best improve parking? And it's a quality of life issue for our residents. I agree with you, Alderman Allen. So I'm certainly in favor in looking into this.
And many of the residents think, Well, look at all the traffic. We're getting all this money from, and they don't realize that we still get the same portion of money, whether they spend $1 million in a restaurant or 10,000.
I'm in favor of it. I think there was a study done about parking a few years ago, and we have over 800, is that right? Like 800 parking spaces. I don't know where they are. Yeah, nor does anyone else. So I think this is a great idea. Yeah, one's right at, there's like 5 in front of my house. So this is a good step forward, and I think it's money well invested.
A citizen has suggested to me that we put toll booths at the canal and start charging to let people in.
Additionally, with in the capital improvements column, and this would be something for Travis to consider, in addition to the general comprehensive plan that he's got funded, to also know what would be needed to create a plan for an entry corridor overlay district, if he needs an additional study or funding for that, because that is our future. And we cannot have any control over design until we create an entry corridor overlay district. And then a long-term plan for the yacht basin that, things for him to consider in addition to parking.
Excellent. Another 50,000 shouldn't be too hard to find. Seriously, it should.
It's a capital improvement,
Right.
but this is we do not have any time to be reactive anymore.
Yeah.
We have
Agree.
to be proactive with our planning.
Agree. Agree. All right. Anyone else on budget deliberation? Okay.
No, I think at this point, if you could just set another meeting date, we will take everything, unless there's something else, we will take everything you've put in and we'll come back with the tax rate, where it's at. And then if you want to set the public hearing, because we got to remember you need a lead time.
Okay, there's, we're at May.
Wait, I got one more
thing.
One more thing.
One more thing.
And this is sort of an aside. This is out of the electric, under capital improvements, on the electric budget on page 43. It says, erect 2 aluminum poles in the vicinity of 12th Street to hang banners from. We do not have any aluminum poles on Howe Street like that. Our street lights are planned for, in the future there'll be the cement decorative lights, but for now they're wooden poles. And wooden poles sequester carbon. It's much better, and they last 40 years, so I don't know that from an aesthetic that we want to introduce just random aluminum poles. Page 43, line item 5800. Well, they are less expensive, but they're more, they blend into the environment a lot different than aluminum poles would.
I'll talk to, actually, I have a Zoom meeting with BEMC on Friday, so I'll talk to them about options. And I just want to quick clarify, we are not moving anybody from Public Works to Park and Rec, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, today is May 10th. Would 1 week from today give you enough time to look at this?
Yes.
Okay. Is 1 o'clock on Wednesday the 17th, and we need to have cookies or moon pies?
I'd rather, yeah. Can we do it either Wednesday morning or do it sometime Tuesday the 16th?
Yeah, sure. Does that still give you enough time, or you want to do it the 18th, Thursday? I mean,
We have finance interviews, the 17th and 18th,
okay.
finance director interviews.
Could do the 16th if that wasn't
Tuesday,
too.
the 16th?
I'm sorry, John, did you say you could do it the 17th, but just in the morning? Correct. Is that bad for anybody else?
But Alderman Carroll
bad
can't be
for
here the
Robert.
17th. So how about the 16th, Board?
Well, it's bad for staff too, because they got interviews 17th
Yeah.
and 18th.
Which day are we talking?
The
16th,
morning,
Tuesday?
on the
Tuesday,
16th before 4 p.m. So the morning of the 16th, but we'd have to be out before 4 p.m. We have a 6 p.m. booking.
Okay, so if we did it at 1, we'd be out by 4. Yeah, 1 o'clock?
On the
Yeah.
16th?
On the
On the
6th?
16th, Tuesday.
Oh, that works.
1
Okay.
o'clock Tuesday the 16th.
What time?
1 o'clock, 1 p.m.
Okay, and then you're going to wait on public hearing?
No, we can, do you think
Okay.
we'll be able to finish up by, on the 16th? You think that will,
That's all.
you'll be good?
I think so, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I think so too. So, public hearing, Wednesday, the 31st, is that too late? Does that give you enough time? Is that too much time? We have the expo on the 22nd. Then there's Memorial Day weekend, so that would give everyone plenty of time. Do it the 31st or the 30th.
You're talking about the 30th or the 31st?
1st of May for the public hearing. Is that enough time? Is that too close? We can,
What about the
Why don't we,
24th or 23rd? Then
that's
that
way
gives you-
too soon.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Can we look at the first, at June 5th, 6th,
Sure.
7th?
first week of June, yeah.
Yeah.
Public hearing could,
Tuesday night, the 6th?
if that's far enough, if that's not too late. And
That works, but you'd have to, because I still, so usually you have the public hearing, you vote that night, or you vote another day?
Same, we could do it the
Well,
same.
Could we vote at the
Vote at the
Thursday's
regular
meeting?
board
Oh,
meeting.
yeah, you could do that too. Okay, just so
Okay.
I know. All right. Yes, whatever
So
time.
the 6th, was 1 o'clock good in the
Well,
afternoon?
should we probably do it at night for a
Oh,
public,
that's right,
shouldn't we?
this is a public hearing, we'll do it 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
6. Woo.
Ooh,
Oh,
that-
terrible.
That's a lot of sick.
Not, just for the record, I'm going to be away from June 1st to June 18th. That's something that was planned 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So you certainly have the public meeting, but I kind of like to be at the vote, and since we can't do it electronically, I mean, I can be where I, dial in, but our system does not support two-way conversation.
First through the 18th. is
First to
gone.
the 18th, I booked this 2 years ago.
All right, well, what if we have when will you be back?
The 18th.
The 18th.
Could the vote be the 18th? I mean, the public meeting I can miss. I mean, if we could do it like on the 19th or something, you just have to have it done before June, right?
Yeah, I just got to check one.
I don't care about the public hearing. I want to be here.
I got to find out how much time we need internally to turn it around. So that's where he's going to go call.
Yeah, it just has to be done by June 30th, right?
Yeah.
The vote?
I just have to make sure that we have time to do whatever we have to do internally to turn it around by the deadline.
And to be clear, and I wasn't clear, I landed in the United States on the 18th, not here. So the 19th would be my first day. I would drive all night to get here.
Well, can we do the 21st? Sorry.
First day of summer.
Woo-hoo.
And I'm going to apologize in advance to everybody for this thing, but it's my wife's 40th anniversary of having to live with me, and so that was last year, and it got postponed. So where are you going? I'm going to Malta, and then the Adriatic Sea.
Well, we're waiting to see what the time, to turn it around.
So I made this recommendation to Alderman Allen, and perhaps this is a bad idea, but we could make the public hearing part of our regular board meeting. He doesn't want to be here for
He
the
won't be
public
here anyway.
either way.
We could, but that makes it long.
But in case changes, if we make changes or something, it
Yeah,
would,
that makes it a long meeting and,
We're not voting at that board meeting anyway.
oh, that's true. That's
right,
And I'd
but
rather have two,
we're voting in theory, we would vote at the 8th on the regular board meeting, but we have a public hearing on the 6th. And then give staff enough time and everyone enough time to look at it one more time and then vote. But if he's not going to be here, then we put the vote at the 21st, then it wouldn't matter when you had the public hearing. Yeah.
It matters to Robert because he's trying to avoid having two meetings and would prefer to
Yeah,
put them all together.
We
but-
can have a long meeting on the 8th. It'll make it a 4-hour meeting. Could.
I'm sorry, Robert, but I really don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, potential. I mean, you got a public.
People have to wait
comment.
around if they have an item on the, I mean, if we're going to do one first, I mean, people are going to have to wait through the whole meeting to hear the public hearing on the budget. I mean.
Yeah.
You're going to lose half your audience.
Yeah, so we should just do it separate, I think. 6 o'clock on the 6th, but we can move the vote so Alderman Alt can be here, if possible, if staff can, turn it around in time.
And while we're waiting in this pause here, am I correct in understanding that technically the law allows for virtual attendance to these meetings and voting?
Yes, the problem, well,
I'm
Not
not
the
talking about the
problem.
technical part.
I already have a policy that, because we wrote one while I was back in Connecticut, but I asked Cheyenne and Randy to find out, do we have the capability?
We do not now have the capability to do that.
Right.
But there's no sense looking at the capability if we don't have the law to allow it. So if we are allowed to do it, I would really like us, there's a number of occasions that'll come up, somebody somewhere, and they have to miss a meeting where they don't necessarily have to miss a meeting. I do this every month for other things that I do, and it works.
City Manager Theron and I have been in conversation with that, and I've been in talks with our AV contractor, and so we're working on getting quotes for that system now. But we're still in the process. It would require engineering to the building, like additional, because we would have to pull an additional resource to get it set up. So we would have to refit the building a second time, or in this case, a third time. But we are working on that process and getting quotes and figuring out what's going on. So yes, it is.
We do it just through Teams.
But the issue is we have to be able to hear what's going on. So like we have to be able to mic the person who's calling in and then make sure that they are.
No, they just talk through their computer. The
There's
Teams.
also, so there's also a delay. So on our live streams, there is a delay from what's going on here for what the people see back home. So in
So
order
because you're going
for,
to use the live stream as the video,
yeah, so to make sure that, like, if you call in, like, we want to make sure that you're calling in and actually getting the actual live feed, not the 90-second delay, so that you're still up to date with what's going on, so that what comment or question that you have makes sense.
understood, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Because if you haven't noticed with the age group, except for one, you know, surgeries, people are recuperating, they can actually stay at home and actually participate if we could start doing that.
Case, then our next, yeah, we will, but we got closed session next, so we'll convene for closed session and and we'll get further information on when we hold our public hearing from city staff. Oh, motion to, in fact, I should read this thing. Closed session to establish or instruct the public body's staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other materials of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract. So I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. So moved. Alderman Mr. Carroll, second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll go into closed session. Motion carried. Thank you.
Are we going to the other room?
Hey, Tish can go outside and, yeah. We can stay right here. That room is very uncomfortable. It is. Very uncomfortable. I don't want. We'll do it out here. Because only other people that'll be here are city staff.
How many year lease is it? How many years is the lease?
They know that we're only gonna do.
Same price. Yeah. I think 5 years is more reasonable than 3. I don't think you're ever going to do that in 3.
Maybe they would do like a 3-year with options, 2-year more options or something. Do you have a annual amount, a ballpark annual amount that all this adds up to?
Bonnie, do you need to know something from us today, or what?
I guess what I'm trying.
I mean, I'm fine considering it. I'd like to, I'm not in a position to make any decision on it or, state a preference until I think our next budget meeting, and we can see where we are with the entire budget, adding this in and the other stuff in, and figure out where we are exactly.
We didn't make any